Welcome to True Culture.
Building Success from Within, the podcast where we uncover the real strategies behind building teams that thrive and workplaces that people admire and are proud to be part of. I'm your host, Robert Cook, CEO of True Colors International. And with decades of experience in leadership, consulting, and cultural transformation, I will bring you real stories and practical tools to help you shape the culture you've always wanted. Let's get started.
Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Robert Cook, and today I'm joined by Dr. Carey Chronis, a pediatrician, a leadership consultant, and author of a great new book, Connection, Rethink, Team Culture from Home to Boardroom. It looks like this. Carey brings us a unique perspective on leadership, that the skills we develop at home with our first team shape how we lead everywhere else. His work focuses on helping organizations build stronger, more connected, and more resilient teams. Welcome to the show, Carey.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the nice introduction. And you are so right. The team we build at home really brings to fruition everything else in terms of team culture. And I don't think that people always see that.
Well, we all have to wear several hats, don't we? So
we do have to wear, yes, we do have to wear several hats. And one of the hats I wear during the day is as a pediatrician. And one of the questions people ask is, why are you writing a book on team culture if you're a pediatrician? Why are you not focused on baby care and diaper rashes and common cold and cough and sneezing and vaccines and all sorts of things? But I don't think what people always see is that what we have at home is really a similar team. And it wasn't always apparent to me, to be honest. I think that I had a lot of parents come in, a lot of moms and dads who are in the corporate world who were working, who were having trouble connecting with their child. I don't know if you have seen that with yourself or with your associates, but they're working away in the business world. They're dealing with a big team, and then they go home and they're not finding that same kind of connection. In fact, they sort of disconnect because they're so exhausted. I mean, it's constant work. And
well, it's interesting. So, sorry to interrupt, but
no,
if someone is not good at home, they bring that to the office. We all know about that, and vice versa. If they're really not good at in the office, sadly, they'll bring it at home. But let's take a step back a little bit. I mean, how does this connection? First, I think you got to ask, do you have children of your own? But tell us a little bit about the career path. How'd you go from pediatrics to business ownership to leadership consultant? How did that journey come together? And was there a pivotal moment you realized sort of there's that connection?
Two things I always liked. One, I always knew I wanted to be a physician, although initially I thought I wanted to be a surgeon, but it was during residency. It was during medical school, during my pediatric rotation, that pediatrics was just fun. And I enjoyed doing it. Put a smile on my face. I thought, okay, I can do this every day. This is no big deal. And second, I liked the business side of things. I've always liked the business side. I put myself through college making leaded stained glass windows. I've been always an entrepreneur on that side. Coming out of medical school, coming out of residency, I started a publishing company of medical review books and had a publishing company on that front. So I'm working as a pediatrician. I liked the business side of things. Then I opened my own office. And it's one thing managing a team of one at your own self-run business. It's another thing managing a group of people. And 25 years in private practice, you start off doing things really wrong. You start off realizing, okay, you're not really bringing your employees together. You're not really getting them on board with the same message that you want. And then my daughter comes along and busy on all fronts, and really took a little while for me to figure out how to make a good connection with my daughter at home and still be a pediatrician. And then at that point, through trial and error and getting things a little bit more right, and then speaking with parents and realizing that they're having similar frustrations, it all started to really come together. And when I started to view the lessons at home and the lessons at work as one, and the skills at home and the skills at work very similar, then everything became much more enjoyable on both fronts.
Right. Just the one daughter?
Just one daughter. If I want more, I'll borrow them from the office. Mhm.
I have to say that your book is so insightful on the parenting side. I happen to agree with a lot of your philosophies on parenting that you learned a heck of a lot through parenting of one child. So I'm very observant. So we share a lot of the same tendencies. But it's not just a book about parenting at all. So let me not get too far ahead of myself, but was there a pivotal moment when you realized there was a connection? And then how did you shape that and say, I want to write a book about it?
Initially, I was focused on a book that was geared towards bonding between the busy middle management or business executive and their child because of the number of parents who I met one person who was head of multiple airlines and had a poor relationship with his children. Another busy person who has a couple of resort hotels who also has a poor relationship with their children. Some who, when I asked them, what do you regret most? One person who is head of HR at a very large Fortune 500 company, and I asked, what do you regret most about your family? And it was not spending enough time with my children early on. Got better at bonding, got better at connecting, but really was so focused on business and didn't really bring the connection together. So when I hear story after story like this, I'm thinking, okay, how can I help bridge that gap a little bit and make them realize that A, you have the skills, you just don't realize it. You're trying to utilize them at work. And B, if you can utilize them at home and really refine them, it's going to benefit home and it's going to benefit work because now you're practicing the same skills you're trying to reinforce at work. So after multiple years of working at it, and I have the absolute best team at an office, and it's a lot of fun. And the home side is fun too. So both have come together really nicely.
Great. I got to say, I read that book as a parent first and a boss second, but you do intertwine them very well. So I joke that when we have children, they're born perfect and they give you the baby, congratulations, here it's perfect, don't screw it up. But no one ever gives us a book on really what to do. Of course, we all read parenting books. I remember doing it myself, but they were more how to and what to watch for and everything to build anxiety. But no one ever really gave us a book on how to parent and how to enjoy and how to make it the best experience possible. I have to say, and this is never a podcast where I let people just shill their books, but this book is phenomenal at that. You go through stage by stage of children of not only their perspective and what they're going through, but you give the advice of to what parents should be thinking, how they should be behaving, and acknowledgement of what they're going through. Because we all know it ain't easy. And you do a very good job of holding hands, I gotta say. And we can take it to the corporate side, but I have to tip my hat to the parenting support side and advice that you gave. So great perspective.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I also went out of my way, well, it's sort of my style in the office of not to tell parents how to parent because that isn't, in my view, my job. We all have our own way of parenting and we all have our ways of doing things. But it's more of learning to anticipate, learning what to expect, learning what's down the road and how to navigate that. So things don't come as much of a surprise. And when things are not as much of a surprise, then in your own style, you're able to handle it in a much more effective way.
Amen. And it goes to the business side. So let's go there because I've given you the huge kudos on the parenting side of this book. But when you began working with organizations, let's go there. What did you first notice about how culture and leadership were being approached? And then obviously your discourses through the combination of parenting or the perspective of parenting. But where'd you sort of, when you started working with organizations, what did you really notice first about culture and leadership?
Well, there are multiple facets. Two that really stand out is not always providing a feeling of safety throughout the organization that the employees wish to feel and really not having the best communication. I think that we have leaders who have great ideas, have it all planned out on paper or in their mind, know which direction they want to go, know what they want to go, and they don't spend the time sharing it with anyone. Hello, tell everyone what's going on, have a little bit more communication, let them know what the plan is, get some buy-in, get them to feel excited about it. When you have a team that you're trying to move in the right direction, they should know why they're doing this and what it's about, and they should feel invested in it. And that's how you're going to get the best out of everyone.
Kind of like
It's Go ahead.
kind of like Dorothy.
Yes, it is. It's kind of like Dorothy. She managed to get, three completely different strangers on the same page towards the same goal, moving in the same direction. And granted, down the road, they thought they were headed in one direction, and the wizard sort of redirected them a little bit. But as far as the leader of getting her in the same direction, you can't beat Dorothy. She did an amazing job.
I love that analogy. Well done. So your philosophy centers on connection over authority. And
Yes.
how do you see that shows up in how leaders build trust and alignment?
Well, I see that a lot of successful leaders have really built their career by creating connection. They're the ones who, from Starbucks to other places where the CEOs get into the trenches. They act as a barista, or they do other jobs, and they get to know what their employees are doing. They get a sense for how the flow is. They speak with the customers, they speak with everyone around, and they try to create a positive experience and then bring it to a next level. I mean, Disney has spent as a corporation their life making sure that all aspects flow really nicely and that you have a really solid corporate culture throughout. And that's one of the reasons that they've been so successful on the theme park front and making guests feel warm and comfortable. The moment
Mm.
the employees feel good, the guests feel good. I think of my wife and I often like to sit at the bar during dinner at a restaurant, and I can think of some places we like to go where I don't even necessarily know the employees, but everyone from the person bussing the table to the host or hostess to the waiter, waitress, and bartender all greet you and say hello and smile on their face. And behind that is a team culture that is really bringing the best out of everyone. And you go into other places and you can see that there's just a level of not necessarily discontent, but certainly not the same enthusiasm or excitement for being there and doing basically the same job. So some people are empowered and some are not. I mean, on a lesser example, I was rushing around and wanted to get something to eat, and I wanted a sandwich and a salad, and the one place didn't have both. So there were two places side by side. I walk into one place and order, and the person behind the register takes my order, and I said, I'll be back. I have to do this and do that. And she just looked grumpy and unhappy. And I said, okay, thank you very much, and paid and went to the next place and ordered my sandwich and was greeted practically the moment I walked in the door with a smile and how are you and what's going on and blah, blah, blah. Really nice experience. Got everything I wanted. That person got a tip. And I went back and got my sandwich and salad and went on home. But, somewhere behind there, you had one establishment, I mean, two establishments right next to each other, one who has managed to really get the best out of their employee and the other one who seems to be struggling. And I gear that partly to whoever is leading them. The team isn't bringing the best out of their employees. The employees don't see the big picture.
Yeah. So let's get into that. What do you think in your experience? What do you think is that leadership style that is important?
There are many leadership styles. I'm not sure it really comes down to one. I still think that dictating and micromanaging and hovering isn't going to get you where you want to be. You need to bring out the best of people. Their personality is their personality. You're going to have some people who are overly bubbly, and you're going to have some people who are shy, and that's okay. I mean, we got personalities across the board. It's really a matter of staying focused on where you're trying to go down the road and everyone being on the same page with that. I have some employees who are much more talkative and verbal than others, but they all are geared towards the same way. They all help each other when things get really hectic, and they all problem solve on days when things don't go very well. And we encourage that and try to get the best out of them. So on days where flow is really bad and things didn't really go the way you want, we sit down and say, okay, what happened here? And it's not a matter of pointing blame, it's a matter of understanding what the situation was and trying to course correct. And it doesn't matter whether it's 5 or 10 people or 500 people. When things are not going well, change needs to happen. But if there isn't a sense of trust and safety, if there isn't a sense that you can speak up without being fired, without being chastised, without being ridiculed, then you're not going to offer suggestions for improvements or change. You're not going to be part of the solution. You're just going to feel like, oh boy, it went really bad and everyone's pointing their finger at me. And that's not the kind of culture that's going to get business as far, in my view.
Amen. I think that that word safety is incredibly important. Trust and alignment. So it's sell the mission, allow for safety, build trust and alignment were the core tenets throughout your book. Absolutely.
And it's safety which comes upon early in life. I mean, what can be more vulnerable than a newborn? And they're lying there and they really aren't saying much, they really aren't doing much, and they rely on you for doing everything. And you need to create an environment where they feel safe and secure. And then as they get older, you start introducing objects. You introduce a rattle for them so they can see and they hear and they eventually grab and they eventually shove in their mouth. And it becomes a tool of comfort. It becomes a tool of consistency. And in the workplace, you have similar consistency. You might have a weekly meeting or morning huddle or some other form of consistency, but it's really the same kind of situation. You're still creating some type of item or object or practice which brings consistency and brings safety and brings a comfort level and helps to reduce that feeling of vulnerability, which is easy to feel in a workplace, especially when you feel no one's listening to you and no one's communicating with you, and you are not permitted to be part of the solution.
Yeah, you intertwine those tremendously in your book about listening and listening and listening and allowing everyone to have a voice. So that's safety, but allowing them to be heard. You may not agree, but that's your prerogative later. But first priority is to listen.
It's easy to sort of pull back and cringe when we don't agree. I think that's parents with a teenager, that situation comes up a lot because teenagers sort of finding their voice and figuring out what to do. And they like to push buttons and they like to see which way it is. And the first knee-jerk reaction is to want to chastise or say, no, 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 you're wrong or whatever. And by practicing holding back and listening and trying to really understand from their perspective, and there are times for course correction. There are times to have a real conversation about it. There are times to say, well, that's one view. Have you considered this? But just the art of practicing listening to a teenager and not reacting immediately and not getting defensive and worked up is really the same skill one needs in a work setting when listening to an employee when you completely don't see it that way from the get-go, and the tendency is to want to jump up in instantly.
Yeah. You talked about having not micromanaging, but having broader boundaries to allow them to find the answer themselves, right?
Course correcting and getting one to correct himself is really big. One of the skills I like with teenagers when they snap at a parent, because they will often say something in a tone that is just not the tone you want to be hearing, is to say, that didn't sound right. Can you try that again? Why don't we say that again? And and the goal is to get course correction without having defensiveness. I think that's really the big part of it is you need to take away the feeling of defensiveness, because the moment they feel defensive, then you start butting heads and that really becomes a spiral in the wrong direction. Then
Mm.
it becomes a yelling, screaming, argumentative match when it really shouldn't be. You are the guinea pig. They're allowed to practice on you. You need to learn how to handle that a little bit better and bring it forward.
Yeah, you're the adult, you're the boss. It's the same difference, right?
Yes, you're the boss, but doesn't mean you need to be bossy.
Amen. And also, allow them to have that voice so that they learn to communicate with the children or so that they can contribute to growth in your organization. If you stifle it, you won't get the input.
Yes.
I loved it. Loved it. You talked a lot about connection and influence and accountability, not just morale. So, how would you say that connection sort of influences accountability? Is that more of just trusting them, allowing them to make mistakes and have a go at it?
Yes. It is. It's allowing them to learn their path. It's no difference than watching a 2-year-old navigate through the world and to, as they get 2, 3, and 4, and learning to, buckle seatbelts or get dressed or do something else, and they put things on backwards and they do things. And we have a tendency as parents to want to jump in and instantly fix it because it's easy and it's fast and we want to move along. And it's like, okay, this is taking a long time. But we're really not helping our child figure out how to do these things. And it's the same with employees, especially newer employees who are learning their way. They need guidance, they need some idea of what the objective and mission is, they need the proper tools, and you can't deprive them of the information that they need. You can't just say figure it out and you're done, but it doesn't mean that you should be doing their job. They need to figure it out. And it's okay if they don't do it the same way you expect them to do it. That's
Mm,
They're not a mini you, they're them. And we need to let them find their own path. And some will be more efficient than the way you would do it, and some are going to be a little less efficient than the way you would consider doing it. And sometimes you can make suggestions, and sometimes you just need to let it go and allow them to do it the way they're going to do it. We're all wired different.
I love the duality here because if done right, you don't know, I don't know if you're talking about a kid or an employee because they are very similar, right?
Yes, very much so. Much, much more than we stop to think about. And yet, every leadership talk or public speaker out there will slide in a comment of family here and there. They bring in these points all the time, but they don't really address it head on. They sort of put it as an aside and they'll make a mention of it and then they sort of move on because their focus is the business side. That's where everyone is focusing on. And they don't give home the importance it deserves in helping to build a strong business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think often authority and ego get in the way, and you don't need to flex your authority. You are the boss, you are the parent, right?
Authority, ego, and not seeing the connection,
Mm,
not appreciating the the connection between the duality. They're not separate entities. We're at work, we're working our tail off. We come home, and in our mind, we're thinking break, 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 break. And we really should be thinking, how can I get the best out of my family and have an enjoyable situation where I want to come home to?
mm. That was very real, where you said you're leaving work and I want to get home and get a break and like do nothing. And that parent at home that's doing the parenting says, I can't wait till she gets home so I get a break and do nothing. So you better communicate. So this is much of what you talk about when you're talking about couples and the importance of communication.
And when, we don't have the situation as much in which one parent is at home and one is at work the way we did in the past. But in that situation, the parents at home is thinking break, 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 break also. And so the one coming from work gets home, the one at home is with the child or children and is exhausted, and there's no communication between the parents, but what never occurs is a break for either of them. And that leads to a lot of frustration, a lot of build up resentment because it's not talked about. And I really think it leads to a lot of marital problems because there isn't the communication about how do we manage time for ourselves? How do we manage time with our children? How do we manage time with our significant other? And whose responsibility is what? And how are we going to make it all work? And it's not to say that having communication about it is going to solve all of the problems because you still have the situation of one at work, one at home, everyone's doing as much as they can, and everyone needs to find downtime some way or another. But by starting a conversation about how to accomplish this, you can start to work out a pattern that seems more manageable and is a little more fulfilling in the long run.
Yeah. Look, one of the big words that keeps flashing in my mind is empathy. And the true colors we're always talking about walking a mile in somebody else's shoes and perspective. And what you just talked about with the family and the couple works at work too. I don't want to have to go to that staff meeting. I don't want to, I want to do my project, but you don't operate in a silo at work. So these are inextricably linked for sure.
Speaking of true colors for a moment, I think that the it was very kind to be able to do the true color survey and look at personality types, and I couldn't help but think, boy, that would be interesting to also have a similar survey for the parents at home, so you can sort of understand what your perspective was in terms of how you thought and put things together, and what the person at home's or the other home working or whoever the other significant person with the children, what their personality type are like, and to have a better idea of how the two meld so you can help to reduce some of the friction that happens in raising children.
Yeah, we do have a true parenting course, actually, true parenting workshop that talks about different personality styles and how one parents. It's the same things, how one behaves in the office, how one manages. You don't manage all your children the same. You don't manage all your employees the same. You shouldn't. Everybody's different. So it's all the same, but you have to, it starts with empathy. I am convinced that if you get out of yourself, certainly you have to, our main tenet is you have to understand yourself. And we put a language to it. We base it with color, of course, colors, but you have to understand yourself so that you have the vernacular to understand others, which greases the wheels of communication and understanding, empathy, cooperation, engagement. It's a wonderful trip, but it starts with self-awareness. That's where we start.
Yes. And it helps when you have enough insights to learn to apologize when you do get it wrong, because you're not always going to get it right.
Amen. And you're taking the time. Look, two working parents, one working parent, I don't care. Life is crazy busy. But if you
It
let
is.
your home, if you let your home life fall apart, that makes it even harder, right? And if you let your work life fall apart, that's going to make the home. So that's why your book is so good. I'm going to keep pushing you. I'm going to keep pushing your book. I know so many young people that I'm going to send this book to that are starting families. I just think it's a really helpful tool. So let's get back to a little bit of culture talk. So if let me ask you this, I always loved this challenge. If your employees describe the culture at your office, what do you think they'd say?
Well, communication is certain. It's interesting because I have an employee that's been with me for, oh, she's going to kill me. I think it's 14 years now. I can't quite remember how long. And she has seen the shift over time, because it probably took a good 10 years for me to really start to figure things out, and then another five to really start to make adjustments that I was really happy with. So we saw a culture that started with a little more frustration from my side of things not getting done quite the way I would have liked to seen them, but also not communicating what was going on and not getting the focus better, to the point now where we're really on the same page and we understand what the goal is and we understand how to put patients first. And that's not to say that my focus wasn't always on putting patients first or getting it right on that side. It was a matter of connecting with the team and getting them on the same page. It's in my mind, it didn't matter whether a patient walked in at 9 a.m. or 5 p.m. It should always be the same experience and they should get the same level of attention, and they're 100%. I've also been in private practice and on call 24/7 and the patients reach me directly. So that part I have ingrained in me, and I don't mind that part. It was really a matter of making sure that the office was on that page. And to a certain extent, they got that because they knew very well when someone came in at the end of the day, we were going to give him the same attention, do whatever was necessary, and go above and beyond. But it was a matter of creating a flow where tasks that needed to be done were done consistently, whether it was something which was enjoyable or something which was mundane, and understanding the importance of why that needed to be done and making sure that if someone was too busy to accomplish it, someone else would jump in to help finish it up. And so I think that on that side, the team is much happier in terms of functioning because they function as a unit and it doesn't feel like a one versus the other employee in our setting right now.
You started to go there with your longer term employees, suggesting that it sounded like a suggestion that you've changed, you've matured, you've grown, your emotional intelligence and your intelligence of the
Absolutely.
boss. What do you think?
Absolutely.
So give us some of the things we've touched on a lot of them today, but what do you think you've learned that most leaders often miss as they try to guide or fix a culture?
Understanding where frustration was coming from on my side and how best to cope with it, learning to solve problems better by listening and helping the employees feel comfortable coming up with solutions instead of me coming up with solutions, and letting them work it out, but not without enough structure or input so they know that there is someone behind them at the end of the day and I'm listening, but helping problem solve in a more cooperative manner. I think that was the big part of it. Saying, okay, this isn't working. And when something went wrong, it was less of, oh, it was none of, oh, you're at fault for doing this. And it was more of, okay, why didn't this work out? What could be done better? And what, how do I need to change, or what do we need to change as a group for this situation not to arise again?
Mm.
And view it from that perspective. So the moment I got that shift in, I was able to get things moving along. I also had one employee for many years who, no matter the changes we made, I felt was a very strong employee, a very good employee, did a lot of things right, but was really resistant to changing and moving things forward. And that was one employee who I let go. And that was not an easy thing to do when you have someone who you really care about, who you've had for a long time, who does a lot. But it was clear that a shift in culture needed to be made, and I wasn't able to do it through conversation. And I was having too much frustration in trying to re-steer the boat. And the moment I let that person loose and made it clear that, listen, I really want a better environment where we communicate. And if you're not communicating, then you're not on board. It's not going to work out. It's time for you to move on. And that was a big part of helping to change the course. So yes, part of it was me learning myself, but part of it was also me learning who was sinking the ship.
That's a lot. It reminds me of probably the big takeaway I got from your book that said, I gotta have this guy on the podcast, is you talked about the culture, and it's true in both. And you bring that up, that life will kick you in the shins. Life will bring problems and challenges. But if you have the right culture, that gives you the ability to get through those challenges a heck of a lot better than if you had someone resisting change and resisting all the way, because you need to fight together. You need to climb together to get over obstacles, right?
Absolutely. And you can jump up and down all you want and try to create the best culture you have. But if you have someone who is that resistant to bringing it forward, that's not going to help in your endeavors. In a really large organization, you're never going to get 100% buy-in, but you need to get the majority on the same page for you to move forward. And you need to spot the weak links where no matter how hard you try to steer it, that letting them go is the best for your organization.
Okay. A little bit of a trite question, but how did you know when you have the right culture? I know it's dynamic and always moving and always changing, but what made you feel that I got this right now?
On a personal level, I just felt less frustration. I came into the office just in a more I had more of a desire to make sure when I walked in that office I was my best because I knew that my team was the best and I didn't want to let them down by dragging them down. I also knew that how I walked in had a big effect on how they performed. So if I came in really exhausted and dour, from the get-go, it sets the tone for the whole day and it's very hard to change. I mean, there are times when more often than not, one would benefit from getting to work and standing aside or sitting in their car or doing whatever and closing their eyes and taking a few deep breaths and counting to 10 and put a smile on their face and realize that this is good and walk on into the office with a much more positive attitude because the moment you open that door and they see your face, it sets the tone no matter how they were, whether they were jovial and talking and doing their things or this and that, my entrance can really shift the way the office focused.
So let's create a list. How to establish a great culture. So show up positive,
Absolutely.
happy. Give us
Yeah.
a few more tricks. Give us a few more tricks of your trade. How do you establish a great culture?
Connect with your team, listen to them, ask, how are you doing? What's going on? See, really get to know them a little bit more one-on-one in a
And
way.
listen to the answer, right?
And you better believe it. Put down your phone and really focus on what they're saying. I think third and really a key one, and one that needs to be done time and time again throughout the day, is to reward good actions with compliments. And they don't have to be necessarily big things, but that great job, thank you, really appreciate it. Oh, you did wonderful with that, really nicely done. I see how you handled that situation or that patient or that phone call or that interaction or got that thing done, and that was wonderful. We struggle trying to get referrals to specialists, and when the team jumps in and follows through until it's accomplished, even when it's a battle or a headache, it deserves recognition. I mean, it's a big deal. And also letting them know that it's a big deal, one, that you see it, that I see it, or whoever sees it, and it's appreciated, but the customer, the parents, the patient sees it and they appreciate the efforts, and they may not directly acknowledge it or say anything about it, but they feel it. They know when the office pushes for them and gets things done for them. So I think those avenues of communication and connection are really important. Learning, listening to them, wondering what's going on in their life, and taking an interest, and also rewarding really good actions and really good workflow.
Is there a typical or what would you say maybe is the biggest misconception about connection in leadership and how to drive culture? Probably the biggest mistakes you think people make.
Not listening to begin with, and just
Mm.
not really being connected in any way. And it goes back to when you arrive at home, where's your mind, and are you connected, and are you listening, and are you really engaged in what's going on? Or, I walk past a table of bunch of senior citizens sitting at a table at lunch, and you see four of them, and they're all on their cell phone. And I say, "Oh, those teenagers always on their cell phone." It doesn't matter what age you're at. We're not really engaged and connected the way we should be. So when we set the example of, hey, I'm putting you first and I'm listening to you, then you get the best out of everyone else.
Mm. Amen. It's hard to put down your phone. They're so useful for so many things. Let
It
me
is. It's actually relaxing when you do. You realize that it's less hard than you think.
Yeah, yeah. My daughters went on a retreat and no phones for a week, and they came back saying that was phenomenal, loved it, and kept them down for at least a day before life pulled them back in their hands for the social
Mhm.
connection. But it is nice to see. Think about that panic when you don't have your phone, if you left it at home that day, but you survive.
You survive, and that's a good thing.
So looking ahead, let me ask you wear a couple hats here. What are you most focused on right now? I'm assuming your practice is on autopilot with your attentiveness and your good communication, all your leadership qualities to maintain that culture. But what do you most focus on right now in your work with leaders and organizations? So the
With
time that you
leaders,
do spend with that hat.
absolutely. With leaders and organizations, I really have been enjoying bringing forward the message of being able to build a better team culture at work and showing that strong leaders who are able to learn those skills and use them and practice them at home actually do very well in the work environment. And I've been having a lot of fun speaking in front of groups about that topic and bringing an enjoyable but informative speech that really makes you open your eyes and say, I'm missing a big part of my life by not connecting better at home. And boy, by connecting better at home, suddenly home and work both become more fulfilling. So it's that message that I really want to bring to the corporate world.
Those are the conversations you want to spark. I love it. And if we were having this conversation 5 years from now, what shift would you hope to see in leadership and culture?
Well, actually, two major shifts. One is a much closer bond with family and children to begin with, that carries on not just at the grade school level, but all the way past college and beyond. Having a child in their 20s and 30s who still want to call you and speak with you and not being so disconnected that they grumble about, oh boy, I just didn't really feel I had the childhood I wanted, and my parents don't really get me. I don't really want that conversation for parents down the road. And it doesn't matter in my mind whether your child is a newborn or soon to be expecting, or whether you currently have a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 20-year-old. These are lessons we can learn at any time to try to improve. I mean, it took me over 10 years to get my office to start to shift in the right direction. It's not something which is instantaneous, and that's okay. And then, second, when you create that environment of connection and team culture at home, and you realize that the skills that you're trying to adopt at work to bring a better work environment together are the same skills you can utilize at home to bring a better home environment together. Now you have the ability to double the amount of practice time you have for these kinds of skills. And suddenly you've realized that your ability to make it work in the business environment is much better. You're
Mhm.
going to have better employee retention. You're going to have more fulfilled employees. ROI is going to go up. Things are going to improve across the board, and you will feel more fulfilled because now you really are bringing the best of yourself to all environments.
Love it. Love it. Yep. I think that listening is a big skill there. So let me then ask for our listeners today, what's one piece of advice you would give to leaders or parents, both, who want to build stronger, more connected teams at home and or in the office? How can they get going? Give me one thing that they really could start doing today.
Oh, the biggest one by far would be simply listening, simply learning to ask questions and listen to what's going on. Listen to your children, listen to your significant other, listen to your employees, and really reflect. And another part of listening is acknowledging that you're listening. So learn to hear someone's question and rephrase it in a way to help clarify it and make sure that they understand that you hear them. So saying, boy, if what you're saying is, if I understand you correctly, you are saying A, B, C, D, whatever it is. And that way you are now acknowledging that you are listening, because listening is part of it. But if you don't acknowledge and they don't see that you're listening, you're not really getting the same message across.
Don't be on your phone listening. Don't be over here listening. Listen here, right? Love it.
Yes.
Love it. Your messaging is fantastic. It really is. I've appreciated this conversation. I cannot recommend that book highly enough. I'm going to send it to. It's not out yet. When does it come out?
It comes out on September 8th. It's going to be launched. They should be up for pre-release pretty soon on Amazon and all the bookstores across the country.
Okay. Where do listeners go to learn more about the work you're doing or to connect with you?
Two areas are really easy. Carey Chronis, MD. It's a mouthful. It will be hopefully on a link at the bottom somewhere.
Yes.
And on my LinkedIn page, I have a lot of information there because that's really where the focus is for the business world.
Great. I've really enjoyed getting to know you, reading your book, in this conversation. Thank you. So it's Connection, Rethink, Team Culture from Home to the Boardroom. Dr. Carey Chronis, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate our conversation.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to be on your podcast. I really have enjoyed this conversation. You're really fun to talk to.
And thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast. We hope to see you again. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to True Culture. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe and share the show with your friends and colleagues. For more information about our approach and services at True Colors, visit us at truecolorsintl.com or reach out for a free consultative conversation. And remember, culture isn't just something that happens. It's something you design. See you next time.